Recording in progress.
Okay, good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 6 o'clock. Could we all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Could we get a roll call, please?
Mayor Lyons.
Present.
Vice Mayor Walter is absent. Councilmember Bagby is absent. Councilmember Cruz. Present. Councilmember Parra.
Here.
Thank you, Jill. You want it one more time? Let the record show at 6:01, Councilmember Bagby is now present.
Thank you. Councilmember Bagby is present.
I don't know if your mic is on or not, Jill, so either way.
It's on, but it's not working.
Great. Any conflict of interest declarations? Councilmember Bagby, I'll give you a couple seconds to.
I'm fine. Go ahead.
Okay, agenda review, any changes or deletions?
Mayor, no changes to the agenda this evening.
Thank you, David. Okay, we'll move on to B, public comments. Any person wishing to speak to the City Council on any item not listed on the agenda may do so at this time. Members of the public have the right to speak on any item on the council agenda at the time the item comes up for consideration. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the City Council is not allowed to consider issues or take action on any item not listed on the agenda. Per City Council policy, 3 minutes are typically allotted to each speaker. Seeing no one in our audience or in our participants, attendees on our Zoom, we will move on. Proclamations or presentations? All right, David. Why am I popping up?
Mayor, would you like to start with Student Liaison report this evening?
Sure. That's why it's not popping up. It's backwards on the screen. I apologize for that. Student Liaison report, Guadalupe.
All right, thank you, Mayor Lyons. Last Thursday was Mr. Eagle, a pageant in which the senior boys competed against one another in a series of categories. It was a successful night full of entertainment. Congratulations to Noelle Donch, Adanelli Garcia, Zoe Katz, McKenna McNulty, and Citlali Ramirez. They were selected as the Citrus Fair ambassadors. FFA members have a chapter meeting tomorrow at 6:15, where they will have their meeting. Interact Club is also staying busy. They are beginning to work on their board for the Citrus Fair. Additionally, this last week, juniors have been doing state testing and will resume testing in the upcoming week. Our junior ASB is busy as they continue to plan prom and prepare to begin selling tickets starting on April 25th. I would also like to thank the community, the Chamber of Commerce, and everyone else who has helped fundraise. We can't thank you enough. As for sports, our softball team lost on Friday but are playing today. They additionally have a home game this Friday at 4 p.m. Baseball had a game scheduled for today but was canceled due to the weather. However, they will also have a game this Friday at 4. Both softball and baseball are home games. Please come out and support our Eagles. Our tennis team is traveling to Kelseyville to have their match on Friday at 4 p.m. as well. And as for track, their next meet is going to be Wednesday, this upcoming Wednesday at 3:30. It will be here in Cloverdale. I wish everyone luck, and that concludes my report.
Thank you, Guadalupe. Any questions, comments? Mr. Eagle is hilarious. I really enjoy that. If you haven't gone, next time everyone should go. It's kind of a talent contest for the boys and their dates, and it's hilarious. Very interactive with the public and with everyone involved, all the teachers and students and everyone else. It's a good thing. All right, moving forward, C2, proclamations, proclaiming April 22 as Mental Health Awareness Month. David?
Mayor, members of council, I'm happy to read the proclamation tonight. This is a proclamation recognizing April 2022 as Mental Health Awareness Month, and I think it's a very appropriate proclamation for the council to consider tonight. Whereas mental health is essential to our overall health, and the importance of attending to mental health has become even more pronounced during the COVID-19 pandemic, which has not only negatively impacted many people's mental health, but also has created barriers to treatment. And whereas millions of adults and children across America experience mental health conditions, including anxiety, depression, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and post-traumatic stress disorder, nearly 1 in 5 Americans lives with a mental health condition. Those living with mental health conditions are our family, our friends, our classmates, neighbors, and coworkers. And whereas discrimination against those with mental health conditions in our society remains and can make it difficult to find and reach out for help, while our nation has made progress in promoting mental health services, many communities face pervasive barriers in accessing mental health care. And whereas the COVID-19 pandemic and the resulting economic crisis has impacted the mental health of millions of Americans, isolation, sickness, grief, job loss, food instability, and loss of routines has increased the need for mental health services. At the same time, the need to protect people from COVID-19 has made it more challenging for people to access mental health services and harder for providers to deliver this care. And whereas even before COVID-19, the prevalence of mental health conditions in our nation was on the rise, in 2019, nearly 52 million adults experienced some form of mental health or mental illness. Recent data from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention indicates that 1 in 4 adults reported experiencing symptoms of anxiety or depressive disorder in February 2021, a significant increase from the prior year. Youth mental health is also worsening, with nearly 10% of America's youth reporting severe depression. We must treat this as a public health disorder, or public health crisis, that is, and reverse this trend. And whereas the City Council of the City of Cloverdale dedicates the month of April to mental health awareness and suicide prevention by acknowledging that immediate assistance is available for those in need of help by calling the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-TALK or by calling 1-800-662-HELP. And whereas the City Council asks others to reflect on this proclamation and ensure that all people living with mental health conditions are treated with compassion, respect, and understanding. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the City Council of the City of Cloverdale does proclaim April 2022 as Mental Health Awareness Month in Cloverdale. So proclaimed, so ordered. Todd Lanz, Mayor.
Thank you, David. Very well written. Any comments?
I would like to acknowledge the fact that we lost a member of our Sonoma County law enforcement to suicide, and this is something that is very present within our community, and we need to definitely continue to support all of those around us and acknowledge that mental health, it is a situation that all of us have to address, especially after COVID-19. Thank you.
Anyone else? This definitely hits home because not only did we know the person that recently committed suicide, and no one had any real ideas as to seeing it coming. There was a second one that hasn't even been talked about or didn't even make the paper. It was from the sheriff's office, and he suffered from depression and PTSD due to saving multiple lives, and it wasn't ever mentioned. And they had a private ceremony because he wasn't taken care of properly, in my opinion. And it happens way too frequently in law enforcement, in anyone that's first responders or has a hard job and has to see bad things. And we really don't take care of those people enough, and it's sad. And even during COVID, I know suicide rates among female teens was up, I think, as 46%. And that's unacceptable. And so that's the stuff that we need to look for in ourselves and our family members, recognize the signs, be willing to talk to people, know that we're all here, because the world is not a better place without you. C3, Proclamation for National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week. Anyone special want to read that? Or Chief, would you like to? That's great.
Thank you, Mayor. I think it's fitting that I read this for
Absolutely.
So I'll be happy to. City Council proclamation declaring April 10th through the 16th, 2022 as National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week. Whereas emergencies can occur at any time that require police, fire, or emergency medical services, and whereas when an emergency occurs, the prompt response of police officers, firefighters, and paramedics is critical to the protection of life and preservation of property, and whereas the safety of our police officers and firefighters is dependent upon the quality and accuracy of information obtained from citizens who telephone the City of Cloverdale Emergency Communications Center, and whereas public safety telecommunicators are the first and most critical contact our citizens have with emergency services, and whereas public safety telecommunicators are the single vital link for our police officers and firefighters by monitoring their activities by radio, providing them information, and ensuring their safety, and whereas public safety telecommunicators of the City of Cloverdale have contributed substantially to the apprehension of criminals, suppression of fires, and treatment of patients. And whereas each dispatcher has exhibited compassion, understanding, and professionalism during the performance of their job in the past year. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Mayor Todd Lands of the City of Cloverdale, declares the week of April 10th through the 16th, 2022, to be National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week in the City of Cloverdale, and further extend our appreciation to our dispatchers Tammy Lindley, Michael Newhall, Carolyn Peterson, Lori Smith, Darlene Stratton, Dispatch Supervisor Catlin Jensen, and Records Manager Linda Webb, whose diligence and professionalism keep our city and our citizens safe. Presented this day, April 13th, 2022. Todd Lands, Mayor.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I would just love to add to that, I appreciate you letting me recognize the hard work that our staff does. It's pretty incredible. They're a great crew, simply put. I know you're familiar with law enforcement background. Councilmember Paula the same, but for those who don't, dispatchers are literally one of the most challenging and difficult jobs in our department. They are the first line of communicators, just like the proclamation indicated, and oftentimes they are overlooked or underappreciated by the very callers they're trying to assist. I know I've been privy to some of those phone conversations, and so to state that they need to have patience and understanding is an absolute understatement to be able to do this job, and ours do it phenomenally well. I think one thing that not a lot of people do know is that they wear a lot of hats. They do much more than just be primary call takers. They have to do report preparations for the district attorney. They do warrant entries because we own our own warrants, and they also do warrant abstracts. When an outside agency contacts us seeking one of our warrants, they have to be able to get that abstract and enter it as well. They handle traffic and parking citation processing, and they also have to deal with walk-up citizens who come into our public lobby and have to address anything that they have. Sometimes they end up being pet sitters for lost pets. They get brought to the police department until we can get Mark with North Bay here or the owners contacted. Several times the dogs have been in our lobby, and it's kind of fun, where they've been in the office. So we're very fortunate that our folks are also pet lovers. And that's very beneficial because those pets probably don't want to leave by the time the owners come back. So it's hugely beneficial. And keep in mind that all of this is taking place while most of the times they are working by themselves in that dispatch center. And just to kind of give you some statistical reference here, in 2021, Kat, Tammy, Carolyn, Lori, Darlene, and Michael handled 16,487 inbound calls and 6,522 outgoing calls, and 151 of those were abandoned calls, which means basically the caller hung up. So total, that crew of dispatchers handled 23,160 calls. So that's a pretty impressive number for Cloverdale when you really break it down. So they do a phenomenal job. I'm super proud of them, and I appreciate the opportunity tonight to recognize them.
Thank you, Chief. Anything?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to add a little bit. Thank you for that report and that overview of some of the statistics. You know, having worked in the law enforcement profession for over 35 years, I can attest dispatchers are indeed a critical part of the law enforcement organization. I mean, they really are the heartthrob of it. They show up for work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They work hard. They do multiple tasks, as the chief pointed out. And many of those are at the same time. They got the CAD going, phones going, they're talking to people at the window, trying to kind of balance that workload. It's really important. You know, they really have to ask a lot of questions to get to the heart of who they need to send, who to dispatch, whether it's a medical emergency, a police emergency, a fire emergency, or all of the above. And when it's all of the above, they have to contact all those entities and get them rolling ASAP. So they are such an important element within the organization, and they are the least visible. They're really the eyes and the ears of the organization to get the right people to the right scene to deal with the crisis that's at hand. So they are true heroes, and it's really an honor to be able to recognize them for that hard work. So thank you.
Yeah, I would like to just add, it is probably the most thankless job I've ever seen. I did a lot of jobs in law enforcement, whether it be from corrections to strip searches to deputy to SWAT, bailiff. I would never want to be a dispatcher. It is the most thankless job. The people are calling you on their worst day and their worst moment of that day. They don't want to talk to you. They're yelling at you. They're upset with you before they even call. And then when this whole big incident goes down, at the end of it, they don't get to know the results. The phone hangs up, and they don't know. There could be a person screaming that someone's trying to kill them. The phone hangs up, and they have to wear that stress because they don't know if that person lived or died or what happened to them. The deputy walks in the door, and everything goes quiet. You don't know, and it's scary. And that was always the conversation they would try to have after was, what happened? Because they need closure. And 90% of the time they don't get it. And, you know, I hired an ex-dispatcher as an employee a few years back who got fired because of a drinking problem. And it was all stress-related from a couple of bad calls he had. And it took some time to get him into therapy and worked him back into his jobs. However, just seeing how low they can go, or somebody can go, because they're so distraught from the post-traumatic stress disorder from it, and just, you know, the deputy knows what happens the second they get there, or officer, I apologize. The law enforcement gets there, they handle the call, they get to have closure, they write the reports, they move forward. The dispatch doesn't know that, so they don't know if that child got help, if that woman got help, if that person lived, if anything, if the person jumped or not. And that's difficult, and I would never, ever, ever want to do that job and do it calmly the way that they do. So these two proclamations really hit home for me this month, and I'm proud that we brought them forward. So. Anyone else? Okay, moving forward to D, consent calendar. All items under consent calendar will be considered together by one action of the City Council unless any council member or member of the public requests that an item be removed and considered separately. Does anyone want to pull any items? Anyone on this side?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to offer the consent calendar.
I second.
Thank you, sir.
Councilmember Paula?
Aye.
Councilmember Cruz?
Aye.
Councilmember Bagby?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Walters absent. Mayor Lands?
Aye. Was it 4-0 with Vice Mayor Walter absent? E, communications. Council may discuss at this time written communications. Anything, David?
No communications, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, moving into F1, ordinance of the City of Cloverdale amending chapters 1.10 and 1.14 of the Cloverdale Municipal Code and adding chapter 1.18 and 1.20 to the Cloverdale Municipal Code regarding code enforcement.
Mayor, members of the public, we're going to just request our code enforcement officer, Robert Smith, to join us. I think our acting city clerk, Ms. Garibaldi, just had him join. So while he is queued up here, I'll turn it over to our assistant city manager, who's going to introduce the ordinance tonight, which is really a comprehensive update of our current code enforcement ordinance, our Muni Code. provisions that would provide for more efficient code enforcement by city staff. Kevin, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, David. You may recall back in October, we did a budget amendment to hire a part-time code enforcement officer, and that happened to be Robert Smith, who submitted a great proposal and was very impressive in our interview. These code amendments really will make it a lot more effective is it working? Oh, yeah. Administration of our code enforcement. Mr. Smith did propose these amendments. These are similar to ones that occurred in both Patati and Windsor. They will provide him with the means to administer administrative citations and notice and order section. Also, it is anticipated that the process will be used for ongoing and chronic code violations. Rob, I don't know if you want to explain the importance of these amendments in what you do every day in working on our code enforcement cases, but I'd like to just give you the opportunity to do that if you're willing.
To answer any questions that the council may have, but essentially these two tools give the city the ability to address what I call transient violations, somebody who's violating a smoking order or a loose dog or something. That's the first part. That's a citation. It's simply written like any other ticket, and it's processed like a parking ticket. So you don't really anticipate writing a whole bunch of those, because most of the time, all you have to do is remind people that whatever they're doing has to be done someplace else or under different conditions, and they go along with it. The other piece in there, the notice, is a process by which we have a property related issue. So for example, unpermitted construction or setback violations, we'll send out a preliminary notice and invite the citizen to come in compliance, and the city certainly will support them. We'll let them know what the violation is, the facts that support it, what the consequences of not correcting by the date we give them in the preliminary one. And for the most part, my experience is once people are advised that there's a violation and the city has recognized it, they will take it upon themselves to bring the property in compliance. Now, some people need more time than originally allotted, and we work with them as long as they're working towards bringing whatever violation is into compliance where they're 100% behind them. For those who don't, they get a formal notice in order to abate, and that also includes a hearing that we set. So in the situation where, once again, we tell them what the violation is, we tell them what they need to do to correct. We tell them the consequences of not correcting if not done by the date we give them, and how the fines and penalties are calculated. And so they're pretty much fully aware if they go past that date without reaching agreement with the city. There's a hearing already set, and that hearing will be in front of an administrative hearing officer who will listen to the city and listen to the citizen and decide whether or not the city has established that there's a violation of the municipal code or the existence of a nuisance. And then the hearing officer will give us a very detailed decision some 30 to 45 days later and confirm the penalties and assessments. So it's actually all along that way. You see more and more people who, for whatever reasons, don't want to comply, will start complying. And by the time the hearing officer's order comes down, the penalties can be substantial. If you have, for example, a substandard house with 3 or 4 different violations, the penalties accrue on the first day of violation $100 each, second day $200 each, and the third day $500 each. So they can quickly add up if the situation is not addressed. So it's a very effective tool. I've used it in 3 other cities, this exact same wording. And it is efficient, and it is equitable, and it's fair to everybody that's involved, and it depoliticizes the whole process. There's no involvement of the council in any kind of decision-making or appeals along the way. It's all done by an independent hearing officer, an individual who does not work for the city. So it's a tool that, honestly, to be effective for the city of Cloverdale, these are two tools that I absolutely need to have.
Thank you, Robert. Appreciate that. Any comments or questions from the council?
Just a quick comment. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is long overdue. Our ordinance is so outdated and so cumbersome, and we've known that for a long time, which has hampered the ability to take care of some basic code violations that we've had as a city a lot of complaints on. So I really appreciate this, and I know you put a lot of thought into this, and I'm glad to hear you say the emphasis is on getting compliance, not on citing. That is not what this is all about, though when compliance doesn't happen, you have no choice but to escalate the ordinance. So thank you for that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Cruz?
Yes, I'm very grateful for this, and at the same time, I want to make sure that we have access to you, Mr. Smith, because many times, we go ahead and provide the information to the city manager or to assistant city manager, but I would have some questions, and I prefer to go directly to the source. So please make sure that you have our phone number, at least mine, and I would like to have yours too. Thank you.
No, absolutely. I invite anybody to contact me at any time, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. You know what? It's actually too late or I'm busy, I won't pick up the phone. So don't hesitate.
But, sometimes it's really good to rehash some observations with the code enforcer, and we can also have more clarity. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, I make very few decisions about what is a violation. I leave that up to your building officials and your planning department. And they are the ones who typically come forth and inform me that there is a violation, and I confirm that on my own, and then that's what starts the process. I don't independently make any decisions without consulting with staff at the city.
Your experience is quite a resource for us. Thank you again.
Councilmember Bagby?
Here, I don't know, I'm sure you guys know it, and this is a bit of a bird walk, so forgive me for taking your valuable time, but did you see where Forbes magazine listed you as one of the top 10 cities in the country to have a second home? It was in the news last week, and there's a very nice blurb. I thought to myself, my goodness, you guys have a great PR department. It's an incredible article.
Well, thank you, Robert. I'm really looking forward to working with you on this. Great job to staff for putting this together. The overhaul was really, really overdue. And as I'm sure you've heard from other council members and staff, is that we've been trying to get this going for a long time and had hit a lot of bumps in the road. And it just reading through this documentation, which clearly lifted from some other jurisdictions who are doing similar things. It's not punitive. It's not trying to go after anybody. It's really working like Cloverdale works, which is, with consensus, working with departments, and leaving it up to the discretion of much of it up to the discretion of our COO, who is our city manager, who is very capable and very compassionate as well. But we need to be able to take care of health and safety issues that have come up. So we really appreciate your hard work, and welcome to the team. Looking forward to working with you.
Robert, for the past 20 years, I've called this town the little hidden secret. So let's keep the Forbes comments and how great it is to a minimum from now on.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to open up to the public. Seeing no one in the audience and no hands in the attendees, we'll bring it back to the dais.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to introduce, I think it's for first reading, is that correct? Yeah, for first reading, ordinance of the City of Cloverdale amending chapters 1.10 and 1.14 of the Cloverdale Municipal Code and adding chapter 1.18 and 1.20 to the Cloverdale Municipal Code regarding code enforcement.
I'd like to second that and congratulate Councilmember Paula.
Councilmember Paula?
Aye.
Councilmember Bagby?
Aye.
Councilmember Cruz?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Walters absent. Mayor Lands?
Aye. Oh, that was easy. Okay. Thank you, Robert. Appreciate it. If everyone doesn't mind, I'm going to go to someone who is in our attendees list, Becky Enos. She's was here to speak on the mental health proclamation. And I would like to ask her if she wanted to take this time to speak at all.
Good.
Hi, Becky. This is Mayor Lands. Can you hear me?
I can, Mayor Lands. Can you hear me?
I can. I'm sorry we got through our calendar so fast tonight and you missed the proclamation. I want to give you the opportunity to speak if you would like to or make any comments because I know this is near and dear to your heart.
Thank you. I would like to be more prepared, but I at least just would like to say thank you to the acknowledgement of mental health, specifically for Cloverdale. As some of you may know, I'm the Executive Director for SOS Community Counseling, and we've been serving Cloverdale youth since 2015, counseling services through the Unified School District. Just during COVID, we also opened up an office at the Senior Center and have been seeing some individuals through that clinic, predominantly seniors, which is a group that is very important and has very different mental health needs, as you might imagine, from youth, but still just as valuable to have an opportunity to serve on both ends of the age continuum. So I do appreciate that. And just as a small point of correction, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. But, you know, in listening to Chief Ferguson in regard to Dispatchers Week, I think the two go hand in hand. And so I very much agree with you, Mayor Lands, that they are two things that are very important in terms of our health and our first responders. So thank you for that. And just also maybe to take a moment to mention to you that just recently submitted an ARPA application on behalf of 4 organizations for the community of Cloverdale. As some of you know, I am a member of Resilient Cloverdale and help facilitate that group. And so I did submit an ARPA application along with some other action groups. It's a combined application asking for Resilient Cloverdale to receive $133,400 to support that initiative and the group emergency preparedness for that group. And then also a combined application on behalf of SOS Community Counseling, La Familia Sana, the Senior Center, and Alexander Valley Healthcare for just a little underneath $1 million, specifically for mental health and bringing mental health services to Cloverdale. As you know, Cloverdale is under-supported in many ways, but particularly in mental health, and particularly since the county's Office of Behavioral Health is really no longer staffed. So I share that with you, and I hope to be able to share with you a positive outcome in the future.
Thank you, Becky. I really appreciate that. Anyone else? I saw your email come through, Becky, and it's great. Thank you. Councilmember Cruz.
Yes, thank you very much, Becky, because your heart is in Cloverdale. And I know it is with our youth and with our seniors. This is a way to say thank you to all those who are with us and continue to service in different volunteer positions throughout Cloverdale. So thank you for making sure that everybody in Cloverdale has access to mental health counseling. Thank you.
Okay, moving forward. No new business, so we'll move on to H, subcommittee items. Finance, admin, and police. Gus is not here. David, do you have anything you want to add to that one? If not, I can just give the next date if you'd like.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just a quick update. One of the key items on the last agenda was review and consideration of a salary for the Public Works Director position. The staff retained RGS to do a salary evaluation for that position. We've tried multiple attempts at recruiting and acknowledged that it was very difficult to recruit with the current job description. So we did ask RGS to do a salary evaluation. We'll be bringing that forward for council consideration at your, more than likely at your next meeting. So that was a key item on the last Finance, Admin, and Police Subcommittee agenda.
Thank you, sir. It was well written and well researched, and so I look forward to it, along with other positions that we might be out of range with pay. It'd be nice to get our town caught up. Planning and sustainability.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, we have it's listed as the next meeting is April 19th, but that has been canceled because two of our essential subcommittee members are living their best lives and will be enjoying vacation on April 19th. So I believe our next meeting is Tuesday, June 21st at 4 p.m.
Mr. Mayor? May I say?
Please, go ahead.
Yes, I just wanted to say that if we need to have a meeting before that, I'm more than willing, because I think there might be some issues that we may need to address before June.
Yeah, if we need a special meeting, or maybe after you get back, Kevin, I'm happy to do that. But when we conferred about the agenda, there wasn't anything that was super urgent that we needed to have a fast turnaround on. But so we can assess when you get back.
Public Works and Facilities.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our next meeting, it's actually April 26th at 1:30. This is incorrect. So our next meeting will be Tuesday, April 26th at 1:30.
1:30. Joint City and Fire District.
We haven't received any updates, so I assume it will be June.
Okay. City and School District. Our next meeting is scheduled for May 16th at 5 o'clock. The last couple of meetings were canceled due to holidays for the school district. The Homelessness Community Advisory Group. Councilmember Paula, would you like to speak on the meeting that you just...
Well, we just had a meeting. It was a short meeting, and we covered a lot of information. There was a nice presentation that was presented. Maybe the city manager may want to touch on that briefly. So if you don't mind, you can just touch on that.
We had a presentation by our Continuum of Care representative that the council supported appointing to the board of directors for the Continuum of Care. He is a housing director for the city of Healdsburg, and he provided a presentation update on the Continuum of Care, current activities, gave an update on the status of the work that important board is doing in terms of developing a strategic plan to address homelessness within, on a countywide basis. And he did indicate that part of the effort of developing a strategic plan for the county is to integrate with the other planning processes that we, for instance, we're developing here in Cloverdale. Developing a strategic plan is to kind of build around the existing framework that has been we've all been working on, including the Northern Sonoma County Strategic Plan for Homelessness, and the update was really a timely update. Again, also some of the work that the city of Healdsburg has done in terms of Project Home Key, bringing on their project, bringing that project forward. Margaret Van Slyke from the housing agency was Reach for Home was also present and discussed and provided an update on that project, and they did confirm that those units will be able to will be available to shelterless population within Cloverdale. So that was kind of good news. And then that project, totals 22 units. So it was a timely update. We thank Stephen for attending and providing, an overview of the activities of the continuum of care, which is the primary funding agency for homelessness activities within Sonoma County. And just again, recognizing that we have a permanent regional representative on that continuum of care, which I think is so important to ensure that we have a say in homelessness policies as they're being developed at the county level.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Cruz.
Yes, I really want to emphasize the importance of Steven Sotomayor in the continuum of care. I was able to work with him for about a year and a half, and I feel very confident on his caring for Cloverdale and for the region. So once again, it's demonstrating, he's demonstrating his concern and his commitment to the city of Cloverdale. So thank you very much to all.
Just a couple of things from the meeting. I'd like to just thank you for that, City Manager. On the Cherry Creek project, that's moving along. They expect it to be ready probably around mid-June, and they will be scheduling a ceremony, a tour for the city council and staff and community, and a ribbon cutting. And getting back in Healdsburg, the L&M Motel, which is being converted into transitional housing units, they have funding in place to carry that for 5 years currently. But they are concerned, they are going to be working, once they get it going, to start putting together a plan to continue funding after that 5-year program. So they're really motivated. They got this moving really nicely, and it's coming along. The other thing is they did mention there's going to be 20% of the beds that are going to be available for emergency lodging, and that was interesting because the definition of emergency was kind of vague. So we did ask that maybe they put together a handout and explain how that works, because our first responders are the ones typically that will run into that, and what does that definition mean, and will they accept it? So they're going to be looking at that as well. It was a good meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And just to finalize, the next meeting would be May 10th at 1:30 p.m.
Perfect. And a little more addition to that, prior to this meeting, and I wasn't sure, it wasn't on our agenda and it was too late. We had a meeting with Supervisor Gore, Chief Tuberville, Chief Jenkins, the State Water, and a couple other agencies, basically talking about the vegetation management, since they went hand in hand last year with all the fires we've been having along our river. Last year, we did the vegetation management along the river park for about a quarter of a mile or a little more, and it seemed to be successful. And Supervisor Gore was very happy with it and went and found the money to complete the entire river park. And Chief Jenkins is going further, and they're going to be doing some controlled burns in areas that every year are actually lit on fire by our homeless population. And they said they basically don't want to wait till August and have it catch like it does every year and take the chance of burning our town. So they're going to get ahead of things this year. Everyone's on board and working really diligently to make sure that the vegetation is taken down so that we don't have the fire risk from the homeless on our riverbeds. But at the same time, we have the Alexander Valley Healthcare, you have your Reach for Home, everyone going, Catholic Charities, everybody on board to help the ones that we have that are out there that would need help. We had 9 fires put out by citizens recently along the river. Somebody was going and lighting it on fire, and we were lucky enough to have some citizens that were down there and kept seeing smoke further and further north along the river. And they put all 9 of them out, and of course they call me instead of the fire department or the sheriff's office. And so I contact the sheriff's office, the local deputies that go down to that area every day. And so they went and made contact with everyone down there, found a few new people that they hadn't met before, and are working to get them housed or taken care of to the best of their abilities. Subcommittee reports. Anything? Council reports. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Councilmember Cruz, go ahead.
Okay. Yes, I submitted mine, but I want to tell you that I had a sneak preview of Cherry Creek.
Oh.
I had to, as a commissioner in the Commission on Status of Women, we invited Colleen to talk about her work with families and women in her career, and then this particular project. So we were excited to do that, and she will be holding also a reception after there is an opening to the Commission on Status of Women.
Thank you. Councilmember Bagby.
I sent mine out this afternoon about 2:30, but I don't know if it got
I got
distributed. Did you guys get it? Okay,
Yes.
great.
Yep.
Great.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I sent mine out, but there is one thing I just want to mention, just for public information, that we did receive an update on the Cloverdale Pool project from Sonoma County, and the completion date was delayed about 3 weeks due to backorder, there were problems getting the equipment. But they anticipate having that all in place by April 26th. It should not impact at all the planned opening day of May 30th. They also have new furniture, ordered new pool picnic tables and seating already arrived, and they hope to have that installed within the next week or so. So we'll have that pool hopefully May 30th with a full solar heating system and new furniture out there ready to go for our community and North Sonoma County residents to enjoy this summer.
Great. Thank you, Councilmember Paula. Legislative reports.
No reports, Mayor, members of council.
Thank you. City manager report.
Mayor, members of council, I have just a couple items I want to update the council on. Just a reminder that tomorrow is the Mayor and Council Members Association. It's going to be in Roner Park, starting at 6 o'clock. I think I have 3 of you signed up to attend. I'll plan on attending as well. We also have a date set for a budget workshop of Wednesday, May 4th, and that workshop is scheduled to start at 8:30 and end at 12:30. Prior to the workshop, staff will be sending materials out to council. There will be, it's required to be a Brown Act meeting, agendized. The agenda will be very similar to past agendas where we had a budget workshop, provide for general discussion. But we, working with our finance director, will be providing some homework for council, particularly around nonprofit funding, but also some of the other key priorities and programs, just so we can try to do some of the heavy lifting in advance and come to the workshop prepared and ready to move through the budget as quickly as we can. Staff has been dedicating a lot of time over the last month, and I want to thank our finance director and our finance analysts for the work they've been doing on developing the budget. Again, we are developing a 2-year budget, looking very closely at our expected expenditures and revenues, and so we'll be bringing that forward for discussion on May 4th, but do anticipate that there will be an email with some homework items that we want to kind of try to get your input and feedback on prior to that workshop.
Mr. Mayor, may I comment about that?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm not going to be able to attend the workshop, but I will be sending, I have done some of my homework already. I will be sending some of my requests for the council and staff to discuss, and I hope that it's taken seriously. One of them is training for planning commissioners, which is essential if we are really going to be that great town to have a second home. So with Mr. Mayor's reluctancy, of course, but it's very important that everybody is on the same page when it comes in terms of what is it that we want Cloverdale to look like, what is the general plan, how we're going to work with the code enforcer, and how we're going to make a safer community for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Okay, continuing on, I wanted to point to council to an email that was sent out providing an update on a proposed pickleball project at Ferber Park. That project will be going back to the next Public Works Subcommittee, which Councilmember Paula pointed out is scheduled for April 26th. And just want to remind council that this opportunity to provide any of your questions or comments about that proposed project in response to that email back to me, so I can bring that back to subcommittee. So if there's any issues or concerns that council may have about the proposed project, we can be sure to bring those forward at the next Public Works Subcommittee. Otherwise, staff is, I think, done a lot of work on that and is ready to bring it forward for council's consideration once it's been reviewed again by the Public Works Subcommittee. So, Mayor, that's the end of my report. Thank you.
Thank you, David. I appreciate that. City Attorney, Jose?
Mayor, no real report tonight, just also, I did want to make just a comment on the code enforcement item. We're also eager to help and work in whatever way we can with Robert, with Mr. Smith, on the changes that happen to the code and just make sure to implement them properly, as far as helping kind of clear up some of those issues that have kind of lingered through the years. So we're definitely eager to get started there and help out in whatever way we can. And I know that we are still following up. I did want to just let the council know we are working on and scheduling the council meeting for the fireworks ordinance. Just wanted to update the council again. That is obviously priority, and just working on other items. I'll stop there because don't give an attorney a mic on a short, meeting, because I'll keep going. So I'll stop there.
Thank you. Okay. Status update on current impacts to water supply.
Mayor, again, a brief update. The State Water Board has indicated their intent to bring forward an amended curtailment order. There is a public workshop that is scheduled for tomorrow at 1:30. The public or the community can attend via Zoom. We do intend to have the City of Cloverdale represented at that meeting, both by our interim city engineer, Vanessa Apodaca, as well as representatives from our legal team to ensure that we're keeping up to date on potential impacts to our water supply. In short, we expect the curtailment order to be very similar to the existing curtailment order. We, of course, responded to that with filing of a health and safety petition. There is this, what they call an off-ramp to a proposed program that we've brought forward in a memo to council involving a voluntary drought agreement, that the curtailment order that is expected to be reissued by the state board, we believe will have this off-ramp for this voluntary process, which has been ongoing and in development. So we're continuing to track that, and we do expect bringing forward a discussion before council on whether there's an interest in participating in the voluntary drought agreement. It seems like it's beneficial, that there's some elements to that we believe as staff that council may support, but we want to make sure we continue to track the changes that are being made in real time as it works through the process, and ultimately we will be bringing that back to council. It's nice today. We got a little bit of precipitation. We're expecting more tomorrow, so that's really great news for our watershed. But it does appear that despite this additional precipitation, we're likely to have continuation of drought conditions, and so we thank the community for all the significant changes that they've made in their irrigation practices and their water use practices. But we do encourage our residents, our business community to continue to do their best to conserve water, because it does appear that we're going to be continue to experience drought conditions. So that's the unfortunate news. But again, we're hoping to get as much moisture as we can out of these storms. And Lake Mendocino, which is the primary reservoir serving us in the Upper Russian River watershed, does seem to be in a better position than it did this time of year than was last year. So there's some good news in all of this.
Thank you, David. I'll move on to the current emergency or COVID-19.
No further updates, Mayor.
Great. Council direction on future agenda items. Councilmember Bagby.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'd like to direct staff to look into the multi-jurisdictional aspect of there's a very significant homeless encampment that is adjacent to the Cloverdale Cemetery. And without mapping it, it really appears to be that much of it is on Caltrans property. It's definitely accessed across what is now smart jurisdiction, because it is accessed via the rail track, and the tunnel is becoming an issue. I mean, I just know that when we were visiting the cemetery the last couple of times on a couple of different tours, and just talking to Al and Hector about it, it's just really becoming a public safety and a health nuisance. And instead of it just being an issue of, let's get outreach out there and, let's round people up, I really think it's going to take a multi-jurisdictional effort of staff reaching out to the agencies to partner with them to address this issue long-term, and not just addressing a patchwork solution. So if staff could assess the situation and bring some options to council, that would be appreciated, because it's definitely an issue. I mean, the folks out there just aren't safe. That's one thing. The other thing is that the folks who want to go and use the cemetery and visit their loved ones are not comfortable. I know, Al's a former firefighter. He doesn't scare easy, but it's just a situation that needs to be addressed, and it's not on it's not all on city property. It's on partially on Caltrans property, and we need to partner with those other property owners and address the issue.
Thank you. We have definitely been dealing with that one for a couple of years now, at least. Well, yeah, long time, but it's Caltrans. It was NCRA, but now is Smart.
Now it's Smart,
the different measurements.
And they're aware of it. That's what was so valuable about having that tour with the planners. They got to see what the situation really is. The GRT, future executive director, also was able to make it up here. And she actually had some very good ideas about the River Park possibly qualifying as the GRT route, and which is actually would be probably better than we've already got a linear park that goes to the same place, and they wouldn't have to deal with the tunnel. So that's also something that you're probably going to say, hey, we're in the planning for planning stage with these entities, and just make sure that everybody is on the same page and aware and understand what the current problems are now, and the direction that the community wants to go in the future with those partners. But I think when you shock the executive director of a transportation agency and the chief engineer of a transportation agency when they've dealt with other very serious issues, that we have their attention on this. So I think that they'll be good partners to work with going forward.
I look forward to getting to go and meet with them. I do have a question. I have an item that I've been working on, and Councilmember Cruz, you'll love this because you probably started it, bringing translations to our meetings. Jade from Liaison and I have been working together and setting up a structure to get this done. And I want to know which subcommittee we should bring it to try to find the way to get the funding lined up before we bring it to council. So I don't know who you would want it to go to.
Mayor Lentz, if I can first address the request for Councilmember Bagby, maybe we can refer that to the next Homeless Community Advisory Group meeting, put that on an agenda. Between now and the next meeting, we'll be prepared to, with a staff response, and then we can bring it forward with a recommendation, bring it back to council. With respect to your request, I think that would be best suited for the Finance, Admin, and Police Subcommittee. And I think it's going to fairly closely coincide with the budget workshop. So it could be, something that we also talk at the budget workshop about, what's the appropriate level of funding and the nature, maybe not the nature, but, the level of service that the council would like to see in terms of translation, so that we can kind of get the funding amount dialed in for the budget, for budget purposes.
And that's why I'm hoping we can bring it to the subcommittee first real quick, just to really finalize what people would want, because it's not a difficult one. I think it's pretty cut and dry of what our ideas would be, so that we can have good numbers and get it into our budget.
Mr. Mayor and city staff, I think this is necessary. However, before we spend money on translation and interpretation, I think we need to put into our agenda community education outreach, so people understand what is the structure of municipal government, because that is the main problem here in Cloverdale. The Latinx community is not quite clear on what it is that we do. And I believe that that's one of the reasons why we have such low attendance in the Latinx community, unless there's a situation like the incident where somebody was run over at the crosswalk. So rather than spending money on that, yes, it needs to be on the agenda, but basically we need to make sure that education is out there, because otherwise we're going to be spending money and allocating funds for a service that is not going to have recipients. And you very well know that I'm an advocate for translation and interpretation, for being inclusive. However, we really need to make sure that we know what is the process so that it is most effective and better spent. I mean, I went through this when the situation happened with the incident of the supposedly stolen wheelchair that went for a joyride, and also with the situation with the individual that was hurt. And at the time, we had spoken about having some educational outreach and some videos for people to really understand what is their pedestrian responsibility and what is the pedestrian safety, equally to driver safety and driver responsibility. And some of these resources are already available through the state and the county. So I think those two things need to take precedence before we go ahead and engage in translation systems, services, and so on. And, another thing is that we had spoken that we were going to attempt to have some Spanish information in the Cloverdale Connect, and that has not happened. It has been totally in English, and it has been like a whole bunch of verbiage. And I continue to insist that we need to have some pictograms, especially if we don't have the resources for translation or if we don't have the funding for that. So that's one of the things that I think is essential.
So,
Yes.
Thank you. No, a lot of good points. I would suggest, Mr. Mayor, you consider setting up an ad hoc, maybe Councilmember Cruz and yourself, to talk about the best way to conduct an outreach, what it's going to take. Part of it may require funding, but I think there's a lot of components, and what's the first, second, third, and lay it out. And the sooner you could do that, the better. Then maybe that can be part of the budget process, because they're all valuable points. And we, going back many years, we've talked about that outreach, just as you articulated quite clearly, and it still really hasn't happened. So I really would like to see maybe just a little ad hoc, 1 or 2 meetings to just kind of brainstorm, put together a plan, what should be the first step, what should be the second step, the third step, what publication would be the best one to do it. Would the Cloverdale Connect, do we get a lot of Hispanic people that read that paper? So if we put it in that paper, would it get a lot of people looking at it that don't read English? Or is there a better publication? Maybe that might be something we could talk about as well at that ad hoc. There may be a publication that's more suited to get the same information in that would get to that population. So those are just thoughts, and I think there's a little bit of brainstorming that could be done to make it really successful. Thank
So
you.
David, why don't we put it on that committee as translation and information? And Councilmember Cruz and I will meet with Jade and have a couple meetings and discuss this and have something more solid for the May 2nd date.
Yes, and also, given the fact that Sonoma County is now a bilingual county, and a lot of the information has to be provided in English and Spanish, there is a resource there that we can, draw from. And so this is very important that we continue to have it in front. And then, Mr. Mayor, for future agenda items, we had spoken before about transportation here in Cloverdale. And right now, we have a 6-day-a-week free shuttle. And I believe that the schedule needs to be revised once more. I would like to know if that's something that could be, I don't know if it should be in planning and sustainability or it should be with admin. But I would like to talk to Mr. Albee again to see how the ridership is going, how it's being used on the weekend, and the schedule to have a revision on this. We haven't looked at this for at least 2.5 years, and it's time that we have revision. It's time that we see what needs we are foreseeing, especially with upcoming housing developments that are on the table. So that's something that is very important. I really would like to continue to see the shuttle and to see an improvement in the schedule, and probably even having a short period during Sunday so people can go to church and do some shopping and so on.
So maybe we put it on as a discussion item on one of our future meetings? Is that what you're thinking, Councilmember Cruz?
I
So they
don't
can
know.
update?
Maybe we can talk to Mr. Albee, David, and Kevin, and then we could come to a subcommittee to discuss
Okay.
the results of the meeting, and then we can have it as a discussion item.
I have a question, David. Just, correct my memory regarding the free shuttle. That happened during COVID, right? So
Right before.
or right before.
before.
So yeah, so they might actually have some substantive numbers that they can use by now to just kind of see where the ridership is and how popular it is. I would just suggest, having worked with Brian and David before, that we have staff.
Yes.
Yeah, to have an initial discussion, and then if he needs feedback from the council or from the public on what's working and what isn't, that we go from there. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, Councilmember Bagby. And I will provide some, we do get reports from Mr. Albee as the transit manager on ridership. So I will make sure that I get that to council, so you have that information. Staff has taken direction from council to, continue to budget for the Fare Free program. And in fact, we've talked about, ensuring that we continue that into next fiscal year and beyond. So we will, I'll forward those updates. I think we have seen an increase in ridership during, over the last year with the program. And I think that was, something that council, I think, thought, forecast would happen, and especially is the student population. I think there's been more ridership. So we'll get those reports, and we can have the conversation with the transit manager on, route modifications or scheduling modifications that, meet the community. I think traditionally that's been discussed, I think, at the Public Works Subcommittee in the past, but it's up to council if you want to.
Well, it's just that I have been in those meetings with you and Kevin, and I would like to be part of that conversation.
And City Manager, can you make sure that the Senior Center Program Manager is included in that as well? Because I've received some feedback from them on some some requests from their senior population, some things that they're very appreciative of and are going well, but also some concerns about just getting to, some people are challenged just getting to the route. And so I think that they'd have some valuable information for you as well.
Okay, great.
So Mayor.
Yes, please.
Not to make the meeting longer, but the idea of translation, an issue with creating an ad hoc and then sending that to a subcommittee is that an ad hoc, you'll have 2 council members, and in the subcommittee, you'll have 1 additional council member. So now you're having conversations between 3 council members, even if the other one is agendized,
Right.
but is of the council as a whole. So your suggestion, Mayor, of going to a
Let's see.
subcommittee directly is one, or just creating an ad hoc and having those findings come back to the council would be my recommendation.
That's what I would really.
Finance and admin is vice mayor and I, so that wouldn't work.
I'd really recommend that the mayor and Councilmember Cruz form an ad hoc and
And
just
then
bring
we'll
it back
bring
to
it.
the council.
I agree.
That work, okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Jose.
Okay. Seeing nothing else, the meeting is adjourned at 7:10.
Wow.